with us today. I'm going to dive right into the discussion and start with something basic, which is I remember the days of YouTube, the early days of YouTube in the mid 2000s, when the word user-generated content first started out, and it meant something. But that was before influencers and before the whole business rapidly changed. Today, when we look at this, what is user-generated content, and how does it differ really from brand-generated content or influencer-generated content? What is really unique about user-generated content? And maybe we'll start again here with the ladies and then go to the gentlemen, and we can take things from there. Tracy, we can start with you.
All right. So primarily user-generated content, well, just to define it very quickly, is content created by the people, okay? And that content is used by brands, right? But the authenticity that comes with it is their primary, it's what makes them at the forefront, I think. It comes with unbiased, authentic, and people trust it more than they trust the influencer or more than they trust the brand.
Okay, great. So authentic, real. Gita, any other keywords that you would add to us also for thinking about what is specific and unique about user-generated content?
What is important, in addition to what Tracy mentioned, is that it helps to deriving the purchasing decision for customers, because they look at that authentic information from other customers. Also, it helps the brands to make their marketing strategy more elaborated. The last one also is very important for the customers to understand what other previous customers, they talk about the product or brands that they're looking for. So that's why it's all about helping the customers to look at the authentic information.
Okay. Rami, anything that you would want to add to this? And any thoughts on how this is really different also than brand-generated content or working with influencers?
I think if you think about what content online is, it's just word of mouth 2.0, right? So it's not something that you have to tap to listen to when someone is talking on the phone, or it's all out there. If I am a user of a platform, and I'm generating content, I'm doing user-generated content. And I think in the ladder of content creation, you have if you remember back in the day, they created the model of 1990. So you have 90% of the people who are creating content at mass. Those are the people that are sharing moments of their lives. It's very personal. It's very, narrative to, what they're doing or whatever that is. And then you take it up a notch and you have a smaller group of people that are more specialized in storytelling, and they have a theme, and they have a very consistent story that they're building, and their social presence or the digital presence or the content presence is not very personal as much as it's personal / linked to a certain theme, which gets them to the level of being either a celebrity where they're known outside of digital for something, or the level of influencer where their digital narrative pulls in fans and people who love what they're talking about, whether it's sports or music or food or fashion, whatever that is, and you get to that level. And the more specialized they are. So I think the difference then becomes in how brands navigate that pyramid. So when you're navigating with the top, when you're working with the celebrities and the influencers, they're integrating their brand or their story with the story of the creator or the celebrity or the influencer. And you take it one step down, it becomes triggering in different ways. So if a brand is saying a story, they're trying to relay their brand story, which is also consistent in different and people just jump on that because the narrative is authentic by the creator who's creating that consistently of that topic. And then when you look at the masses, it's just a very loud cloud of word of mouth that brands can tap into smartly, listen to critique, understand demands, build trends, and sort of understand how they can get into that conversation. So that's sort of the whole ecosystem as I see it, to be honest.
Really interesting the way that you put it, Rami. What's interesting also is while Tracy and Gita were both talking about authenticity as core to user-generated content, it also seems that it is also core to influencer-generated content, right? It runs through both of these. Maybe part of the difference, what you're saying is the sense of focus of the narrative, the thematic focus, and potentially the reach, right, in terms of the scale of the audience. Ronan, I wanted to see if you'd like to add something to this, and if there is some specific, differences when we look at user-generated content in format or the type of content that we think is, relatively easy to engage with around user-generated content. For example, it might be harder to get users to write text. Maybe in the olden days, it used to be harder to get them to do video before video became such an easy to use platform. I'm curious what, differences you see from a content perspective, from a format perspective, or even from a distribution perspective.
In my opinion, I think that user-generated content is something that is usually abundant. That's something that's out there, and brands needs to find it, catch it, and drive it through their strategy. And this is the hardest part. You have to identify what can be, what can I put my hand on, something that is interesting, something that I can use, something that is relevant for my brand, because that's also something very important. You have to find a content that is relevant. You have to tell a story that is not just made to make views. If it's only views, people won't remember what is your message. They will just have a laugh and move forward. But you have to say something with it. So the hardest part is to find it, drive it through your strategy, and sometimes educate the users to change a little the storytelling and lead it for your own purpose. For example, at ClapnClip, we use video footage from the people that are on holidays, and they have not been waiting for us to do videos. People are recording travel videos for generations. Even my grandfather used to shoot his videos when he was on holiday. It was 8mm videos, but still, as they have not been waiting for the smartphone to come out. So this content was already existing, and we just found a clever way to drive it for the purpose of our clients.
But I think it's interesting. It's not necessarily like you're going to go out and find a tree with perfectly ripe fruit and you're just going to pick it. There's a bit of planting, there's tending, there's directing, there's pruning, so that you get it to grow certainly in a kind of direction that you want. And maybe I'll go back to you, Tracy, especially since as an influencer as well, I wanted to get your thoughts on this conversation, and also start with a broader question around, what makes for good user-generated content? What are the kinds of campaigns, the kinds of objectives and cases that are really well ripe for, if we use the same agriculture, ripe for user-generated content? And I'm going to pass through with others with iterations of this same theme, but I'm curious to explore this space together.
Okay. So brands that use user-generated content as part of their strategy are essentially giving power to the people and giving emphasis to their brand and highlighting their brand in the eyes of the people. So it is not coming out of what they think their brand is about, which is obviously biased. It is based on what the people think of the brand, and using that as part of a strategy. Like a good campaign would be, for instance, Adobe. They're a very good example. Coca-Cola, Red Bull, a lot of those brands basically make the people work for them without the people knowing that they're working for them. They will give them the opportunity to repost their content, Adobe as a very good example, on their platform with a tag or a mention of the creator. And the sole job of the creator is basically to do his thing, at the same time use the hashtag or use a tag in order for Adobe to notice them and then repost them on their page. That sort of campaign is first of all, so cheap for the brand. If you think of Coca-Cola, they're the first people that started user-generated content when they basically wrote very common names. I think that started in Australia. They wrote about 150 most common names on Coca-Cola bottles. And then they mentioned that as part of their advertising. And then people went around looking for these Coca-Cola bottles to find their name on it. And as soon as they find their name, they're posting about it, they're talking about it. And that saved, I think, about 2% in revenue, or they generated 2% of revenue on the back of that kind of user-generated content. Which in retrospect, I mean, it seems minimal, but in retrospect, I mean, they make billions, right? So in retrospect, that's a lot of money. Adobe does it, GoPro does it. They repost all of the videos of all these content creators. So that's free advertising, free marketing. And it's just making people do the work for you.
But to a certain extent, having a lot of mediocre or low quality content isn't effective marketing, right? It's not enough to just have content. I'm curious how maybe I want to shift gears a little bit to the more practical conversations around incentivizing participation, getting really high quality content. Thierry, I'm going to come back to you. I want to loop around with the speakers and come back to you. But how do we make sure we go from a lot of people posting a lot of random stuff to getting really high quality content? And maybe Tracy will stay with you and then go to Gita on this and the gentleman.
Yeah. So it really depends on what your core business is. Adobe is Photoshop. So if you're going to be an Adobe user, you have to know what you're doing, right? You're really going to produce good content. I'll give you my strategy as an example. I have an app. Okay, it's a fitness app. And I have an Instagram account for that fitness app, which initially, I mean, I just opened it publicly because it used to be a private account, but obviously it's a struggle for me I either have to hire a social media specialist in order for them to put graphics together and provide me with content, which is quite expensive, or I count on my members to produce that content for me. So I will have to tell them, I need a before and after shot, give it to me in clear quality. If you want me to post and push and motivate other people, send it to me, send me your videos, send me your content. Now, I have the know-how to elevate that content, okay? I could just work with an editor or a creator in order to elevate that content, maybe put it in black and white if the quality is poor. And it's, I mean, there's a way around it for you to do your part in elevating the content, but then at the same time you have people producing that content for you, and they're not just giving it to you, but they're also posting it on their platform. So
okay, great. And part of what you're saying, Tracy, is you give them kind of guidelines about how to create something great, and then you do a little post facto work with the material to up it up a notch.
Someone of my size will have to do that, but someone of like Coca-Cola size would have millions of people posting their content, and then they have enough to choose from. They'll pick and choose the quality content. Same goes for GoPro, same goes for Pepsi, same goes for Red Bull, right? But for a small business, yeah, you can give them guidelines, do a giveaway and tell them, if you post yourself with my gym equipment, for instance, then I'll repost you on my page, I'll push you. So people are going to do the work in order to give you some sort of quality content, because you're giving them the opportunity to showcase their work on your platform. So I would hope that they do their best they can to give you good quality.
Great. And this is also for you, answering one of my other questions, which is how do you incentivize really people to participate? And one of them is what you're mentioning is exposure. But maybe Gita, will go to you. How do you incentivize people to participate, and how do you equip them with what they need to create really high quality content?
I would like to add a few points to Tracy when we're talking about the brands. I think it's very important for the brands to know their voice. So the international corporation, they have an agency, they have a team that they work for them, and they receive a lot of content. But if we want to talk about the small brands, about medium brands, the first thing that they have to start is to know their voice. And when they know their voice, they will be able to make the customers or consumers to provide content related to their voice. If you're talking about how to incentivize, I give you an example of Amazon. In Amazon Prime, you can provide your wish list, and how they are using it very simple. They look at all the wish lists that the customers they have, and they share those wish lists with the prime customers to understand what are the latest products that everybody they are buying, and why they like it, and how they can get the benefits. So we can see we have customers that they have a need, and we have brands that they have products that they provide benefits. So we have to talk about the benefits of our products to the customers. Top of the mind, I don't recall any examples. I think I have to hand over here to Rami, because in TikTok they can have a lot of examples, updated examples. So maybe he can talk about some of the incentivizing examples on TikTok.
Absolutely. Look, honestly, I mean, TikTok is a user-generated content platform. That's what we are. And I think what we've proved to the world is when you facilitate the process of creating content, like a lot of people don't know that TikTok in the app has around 24 editing features, from adjusting clips where you can edit the clips and sort of rearrange them, to voiceover, to voice mixer, to timer, to you name it. There is a lot of features out there that can really allow you to do what professional software requires, which facilitates the ability of mass creation. In that context, I just want to take a step back on defining the word quality. Like, I'm yet to see any research, and if I don't want to be too extremist, maybe 80% of the research that I've seen for brands, what are the trusted sources? Top two is always word of mouth, right? So to me, in this day and age, quality of the content falls short as a key filter to an output. Quality is meaningless now as long as the story is out and as long as it's clear. I'm now looking to plan my summer vacation with the family. I'm looking for a travel agency. The first one I'm going to visit is one I'm going to see from someone who's used it. So if someone says, I've used X, I'm going to jump to X to use it because it's been used by someone, right? It's unbiased. Quality, though, not that I'm not killing or underestimating the requirement for quality, but depending on the purpose of the brand, quality becomes, or the weight that you put on the quality differs. So I'll give you 3 examples on TikTok. Number one, when we're doing challenges, which is something that is very popular on TikTok, the trigger or the incentive is the participation and that community feel of being part of something with a lot of people. And if you see a challenge and you like it, and you like that sticker that tells you which Euro team you're following, or which, wishing your father a happy Father's Day. So happy Father's Day.
This when they point like this and like that to
yeah,
to
exactly, right? And people, it's so easy. That's generated content, right? And then you take that up a notch and you say, all right, we want to tweak that, and we have a brand that's on board that wants to really participate the personality of the brand. So going back to Gita's voice, what's the voice of? It's the personality of the brand. So they come in, you do a soundtrack, you create a specific colored effect, and you sort of bring the same easy to create content. And then there's the community feel. So there are creators that join that get monetized for it because they are sort of joining for their clout, for their size, for their creative abilities to inspire users. But then you have a lot of users that sort of jump on it and sort of participate in the story. And so that here, then you're just tweaking the quality so it's good enough. And then you have a third layer where, for example, you want to trigger an emotional trigger. So we did a campaign not too long ago called Be Safe, Be Happy, which was meant to be, called Create, Don't Hesitate, which was for bullying. And we were releasing 2 features, one that allows users to approve and reject comments before being posted, and one that announces a feature called Rethink that pushes creators who are trying to bully on comments and says, hey, rethink what you're posting doesn't sound right. In that narrative, we did a challenge to create sort of that mainstream, quality is irrelevant as long as the story's out. And we asked users to tag their favorite creators and say something nice about them. And it was the most shared challenge of all time till date. And then on the other front, we worked with key opinion leaders and influencers to create an emotional TVC. So we worked with Raya Birashid, we worked with many creators and KOLs, and we said, look, we need to hit hard when it comes on this message emotionally. And I don't want to speak to the bullies. Let the bullies, I want the creators to say, look, if you have something you love, just do it. Create, don't hesitate. So that was an edited video. It was very emotional. It was sort of co-scripted with the KOLs, and we really hit hard with it, and it helped a lot. So I think.
So I want to push you on this, Rami, and ask you today of the different challenges, and you've seen many of them. Some go to 1 billion views. Some whatever in the millions. What are the best practices? What are some of the things that really makes for something that lends itself to mass participation? What have you figured out through this experience?
3 things. And if you have a pen and paper or you have good memory, just make use of it. 3 things. Number 1 is simplicity.
Okay.
Sometimes people think that to be creative, it needs to be complicated. And they start adding stuff and put this and then put that and then be here and then jump off a mountain. No. Like, be simple. That's the first thing. And the second thing is be obvious, right? Sometimes also creators or creative directors or writers or whatever, whoever, anyone, they tend to try to be sophisticated because it's part of the art craft. And what ends up happening is you lose context because you're not obvious. What are you trying to say, right? So simple, obvious. And then the third part is really be clear on why you're doing whatever you're doing, right? So what is the story you want to tell? What's the feeling you want to trigger, and how are you going to tell that story? A lot of people jump and say, let's do a sticker. That's my idea. The sticker is meant to bring your idea to life. What's your idea? And that would be the first question. So what's your idea? Why is that your idea? And what do you want to trigger? And some people sort of jump ship and they skip that first part, which is the creative framework. And that's the difference between a 1 billion stream challenge and a 1 million stream challenge. It's that craftsmanship of cracking the why, being simple and obvious. If you are able to put some time there, if I am to put 100 minutes onto a project, I'll put 80 minutes on the first phase of why and what the story, and then 20 minutes on really getting that done. Because if you are clear on what you want to do, the creative process becomes simple, it becomes fun, it becomes easy. And that's where really creativity kicks in. And there's a lot of global campaigns, if I want to talk about brand campaigns that I love. One, which is Got Milk, if you remember that campaign from back in the day. There was a lot of, I don't know if you know the story, but back in the day.
They're like milk mustache, basically, right?
But you know where it came from. They didn't know what to pitch to the client until at 1 second at 4 a.m., somebody walked into the fridge to make coffee. He didn't find milk. He went to Frank and said, Frank, got milk? So everyone looked at him and went, got milk? And the insight was, you only think of milk when you don't have milk. So got milk was, so if you're able to crack that beginning, the creative framework becomes so easy. I'm not over facilitating the process. It's not an easy process, but what I'm saying is if you want to hit hard, think hard in the beginning on the why and simplify as much as possible.
Clear. And Tracy, I've been seeing you kind of agreeing. So I wanted to cue you to give us any thoughts. And Ronan, I'm going to come back to you also, but go ahead, please, Tracy.
I would add a layer. I mean, Rami is spot on, of course. And I would add a which is trigger an emotion, whether it's funny or touching, or even if it angers you. Something that triggers an emotion is more likely to be shared or forwarded to somebody else, as opposed to just bland content that is rotating around yourself. Or, I mean, I think the days of the fashion shots and the selfies and things that are just basic 2D are over. No one really cares anymore to share that kind of content or beauty shots as much as they would share your before and after of having a filter on and no filter on, or you're talking about your skin disease, let's say, or showing your stretch marks now. I mean, a lot of people are triggering that kind of an emotion to say, oh my God, I can relate. Because what is the beauty of social media is that everybody becomes attainable. It's no longer celebrity and then people. That's just people on a pedestal. You never think you're going to be like them. You don't think you're anywhere near what they can accomplish, right? But when it's another layer in between. You're seeing someone just like you on the other end of the screen doing something, talking about something. It's much more attainable then. So emotion is definitely a huge thing, I think, to add on to what Ammi's saying.
Okay, so we've got some good rules at this point. We've got simple, obvious, clear, emotional, and we've got a lot of thinking about the story and the why from the very beginning. Ronan, I wanted to see, because I think that why resonated also with your earlier comments about really figuring out why you should do anything, right? But I wanted to open it to you for some comments.
Yes, what I would like to add about what Rami and Tracy already said, but wasn't clear enough for me, is that story and emotion matters much more than the quality. With user-generated content, brand must see the content not through their usual eyes for marketing content. It must not be as beautiful as it is usually for influencer or for brand generated content, because it's made for users. And on the other hand, if there's too much quality on the user, it's not authentic. People won't trust that it is authentic. So you have to find kind of a balance between quality, because it has to be watchable, and you must hear some noise, something that can be heard properly, but it also needs to tell a story and to put some emotions. When we edit videos made with footage with a smartphone shot by a grandmother, what we like the most is not the quality. We don't think about the smartphone that has been used. We think about the noise. If we have laugh, if we can hear the children say something, that puts a ton of emotion on the video. And that is authenticity. That's what I like the most about user-generated content, because it's true. When you have a kid and he's filmed on holiday on the beach and he says, "I had the best day of my life." Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, it's raw. It keeps it, I mean, like you're saying, Ronan, spot on. The emotion is linked to raw content, because if it's polished content, it's no longer emotional. You thought about it, you edited it, you put like glitter and fancied it up. That's goes back to the point I was saying about the fashion posts and the touch-ups, and people don't want to see that anymore. The more raw it is, the more emotional it is. And I understand your business model, Ronan, that you're editing raw footage, and it's not about it being beautiful, that you can post it on some amazing Instagram handle that does beautiful destinations or something like that. No, it's really about the user's genuine and raw and emotional experience. So yeah, spot on.
I think the problem is not with having enough user-generated content. I think it's a problem with the brands that they don't know how to use it. I think it's 20% of the, as a marketer, I can say 20% of the international companies, they really use user-generated content properly. There is no consistency on the communication, the way they post, the way they look at the content, the way they publish the content. They sometimes oversell the content. Sometimes they polish it a lot, as you mentioned about the quality. They try to make it better. And what is important, that I think contents are there, but for the brands, they have to know how to use it. And that's one of the gaps that is existing currently.
Wonderful. Thierry, I want to, Ronan, did you have something that you wanted to add? Yes, but you're on mute somehow, or your microphone is not working.
Oh, yes. I wanted to add something about what Gita just said, because she's 100% right. Brands don't know what to do with user-generated content. That's the biggest challenge for brands, I think, with user-generated content. They have not the habit of doing anything with it properly. Except if you are Coca-Cola or GoPro, it's on your DNA, or you have agencies with a lot of money that can give you advice about what to do with it. But user-generated content is usually very badly handled by the brands, and that's bad.
Before we change topics, why is that? Since you and Gita agree on this, and I'll turn it back to Gita after your comments on this. Why are they so poorly equipped to do user-generated content? What's the problem?
Why?
What do you say, Rami?
You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Why? Like, I'll give you various reasons. I'll give first examples. Telcos, for example, create user-generated content by using some of the platforms as their cost center platform, as their cost center sources, right? That's user-generated content. When a user goes ranting to, to social and gets their problem resolved and says, "Thank you, I love you," that's powerful, right? That's user-generated content. You also have you also have the fashion industry, which has been building on the fanatic love of fashion and lifestyle, and has millions of people, men and women, sharing what they wear, whether it's perfume, whether it's clothes, whether it's shoes, or it's sunglasses, to showcase the love of, look, I'm wearing my favorite thing. Even cars. I'm a Jeep fanatic myself. As a Jeeper community, we are sharing the pictures of our modified Jeeps left, right, and center. So then you have a second bucket of brands that have built their fanatic sweet spot with their users. And here, the definition of users is not user of a digital platform, but the user of the product. And those fanatic groups are sharing continuous flow of content. And if brands are consistently tracking and engaging with them, like we get invited to events for the brands that we love all the time, eventually that narrative will keep going. So the consistency that Gita is talking about, and the authenticity that Ronan is talking about, and sort of drawing the line between polished and non-polished that Tracy is talking about, all falls into play when the brand understands the power of why. When a brand goes to UGC because they want to go viral, I think they're starting on the wrong step. Virality is a result, it's not an objective, right? And that's why when you come to TikTok, we talk about virality by design, not virality by chance. So you don't come to TikTok and, hey, everyone goes viral on TikTok, right? But it's because the platform has been designed to push creativity. And we work with brands and users and creators. Like we have TikTok Creators Academy that is now going digital, that allows creators, users, to go through tons of courses and tutorials to learn how to level up their creative capability and learn how to share everyone has passion. They just don't know how to create that framework. So if the brand tries to understand how they can, why they want to tap into user-generated content, and what is user? Is it the user of my product, or is it the user of a social platform that I want to tap into? Once you really define that context, look at Red Bull and the athlete community. Those are all users of their brands, but they're all athletes. Like there's a lot of examples of the different uses of that. I think once you crack film reviews, people who do film reviews, like there's so many examples.
So cracking the why cracking the why is one of those things. Are there other things, Gita or Ronan, that you see agencies or brands have a hard time with figuring out UGC?
I would like to say that because Rami has mentioned a lot of good companies that they know what they want, but there are still a lot of companies that they think if they integrate social media and digital, that's it. They know how to create content. So the moment they want to integrate social media and content, they want to have all the channels. They want to communicate the same thing, the same sentence in all the channels. They don't know how to engage with the community. And as Rami mentioned, engagement is very important. Social media without engagement, it's just a media. There is not going to be a social media. So we have I've seen a lot of companies from finance, from B2B, they would like to come and get benefit of the UGC, but still they have difficulty to understand that it doesn't mean that because there are a lot of channels, they have to be on all the channels. So they have to see where they are fitted, who are their target audience, how they can communicate and what they have to communicate. And we go back again to what Rami said, why? why they want to communicate what they want to communicate. Is it to increase the awareness? Is it to sell a product? Is it to create the reputation for the brand? So we have to find that objectives.
Great, clear. Yes, Ronan, please.
Yes, I want to say that the finding the why is not actually related to user or generated. It's just related to content. You have to think about the fact that user generated content is, first of all, it's content. When you want to make content, you must know why.
Okay, great.
It's just that simple.
Maybe
Excellent.
one more point here is I think for brands who want to use user generated content, it needs to be thought of as part of something. If brands or people or whoever wants to go to work with user-generated content because it's cheaper or because it's free, they're also starting with the wrong why. The power of using creators and the power of using influencers and the power of using celebrities is also aimed at the power of identifying the size of the trigger. If I am to use the #1 music celebrity in the region to trigger a message, the fanatics of that celebrity and the ripple effect is going to be much higher than me trying to ripple something out of my own account, depending on the size of the brand. I could be a startup, I could be an established brand, I could be a niche brand, I could be a mass brand.
Well, I'm going to ask you, Domi, just to hold this thought, because I want to talk about how we build momentum and how it fits within the broader context of the marketing mix. But I did want to just turn over to Thierry, who had some thoughts to add on this this conversation so far. Thierry.
Thank you very much, Omar. Yeah, everyone has mentioned very, very interesting. And what I would like to add is just that when Tracy was mentioning influencer and user, as well as Rami, I think here the basic idea is trying to reach and to put together your own community, is either through the UGC or the IGC, influencer generated content. In both cases, the objective is always to reach and put together your community.
Okay.
That's a very important point. Look, at TikTok, most of the trends are initiated by the users of the platform. And I think what the lesson here is, if brands are listening to their consumers close enough, like we listen to our users in our model, they'll end up realizing that there are trends that are being delivered by the users. If you amplify that, that could become something bigger. So the trigger can come from within. And if users are interested in a certain topic and if they're pushing a certain narrative, maybe it's cool to go there and praise them and talk, like Gita was saying, like you have to engage with them, like speak to them, comment with them, comment on their posts. That could be something that also amplifies. A lot of the trends on TikTok are actually initiated and created by creators. We have nothing to do with it. We just discover it and we just push it out to give them the chance to be seen for the amazing ideas that they're creating.
Amplifying them, which I think makes a lot of sense. I'm seeing questions from our audience, so I do want to take a couple of those. Let's try to keep these very brief. How can we share user-generated content without sacrificing the quality of posts on our Instagram feed? Who'd like to take a stab at this one?
I'm with TikTok, so I'll leave it to someone.
Yeah, Gita, Tracy, Ronan, anyone?
Sorry, I missed it. Can you repeat your question?
Yes. How can we share user-generated content without sacrificing the quality of posts on our Instagram feed?
I'd like to say that what you sacrifice on quality, you gain it on authenticity. You know, there is a balance. Whatever you lose on one side, you need to win it on the other side. If you don't win on quality and on authenticity, just drop this content and get something else. But the main perk with user-generated content is that it's something that must be abundant. So you will always find something that is balanced enough between quality and authenticity. But if you always have the habit of using very high-end, very polished content for your Instagram, maybe you should try to add some authenticity and reduce the quality and improve the authenticity and check the results, because you always have to take a look at the KPIs and see what engaged the most the community. It's not all about beauty. It's social media. It's not media only, like Tracy said just before.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so I'm with Ronan. Look, I mean, sorry, Gita. I'm with Ronan to a certain extent. For like the most raw videos that I've taken from my phone, which is probably 95% of my content, have done much better than polished content on my platform. But that doesn't, I mean, I'm not an example for, let's say, brands whose page, like if you're looking at, let's say, the Nike page, Nike is definitely not going to put basic raw content on their platform. Their whole purpose behind their platform is to have this beautiful, engaging, high quality content. So maybe this raw approach doesn't work across the board, but what they can use as user-generated content is not necessarily a video, but it can be a photo of a sneaker, or just like a testimonial. You know, if they have a great testimonial, a great review, just put that on their platform with the name and tag the person. Thank you for this review. So that doesn't require any editing. That doesn't require polished content. But you know what? It's user-generated content, and it's great content, because if you're hearing a good review from somebody, and I mean, it just takes one repost. I wish Nike would do that. It would take one repost of someone's review for millions of other Nike fans to say, okay, I'm going to write a review and let me see what if Nike's going to repost me, right? So it doesn't have to come in the form of content, like video content. It could just come in the form of testimonial, right?
I think what I can add is that, again, if you know your brand voice, you will be able to direct somehow your customers when you are creating, for example, specifically on Instagram, a campaign or a competition, and you give a hashtag. I think with the right direction, the fans and the customers, they use it the same way. So if they are 70-80% in that communication there, so that comes the authenticity, and you should be fine with it. You shouldn't be worried about, you know, polishing the content and reposting it. So that's important. I think on Instagram, when you generate the UGC through the hashtag, what is important for the business, your business, is that you shouldn't leave it there. You have to link it to your website and guide your customers, bring the customers, the traffic to your website. That's what you, as a brand, you should, or business, you should be worried, not about how the quality it is.
To add to Gita, actually, she's spot on, because I mean, the why, as well as what Rami's saying, is so important, because brands will approach me as an influencer to say, please, we want you to promote our product, and we want people to follow our account. I'm like, okay, but people following your Instagram account when you're, let's say, a pharmaceutical company is, I mean, it's what you want is to sell your product, right? So how about I push driving traffic to your website and find a strategy towards that with swipe up links and pushing people towards your website so they can buy online, which is your new online shopping, where you have your products listed as a new e-commerce business. That should be your priority. It is not about, okay, but we want people to follow us on Instagram. No one cares about, you know, following a pharmaceutical company on Instagram. So just like Gita was saying, you have to know why, and what Rami was saying, why and what works best for you as a brand. And maybe it's not a repost on your page. A hashtag is a great example. If you're working with a hashtag as a UGC, the whole point is people visiting the hashtag and all these people talking on that hashtag. That is a priority over you getting a good piece of content and posting it on your platform as a brand.
Great.
Yeah, I would like to add that what is very important is where you put your user-generated content. If you want to have a very polished Instagram feed, yeah, let's go. It's fine. And for example, with our clients, they found a very nice spot, which is on the product page, you know, where they have the comments. Usually, instead of having just written comments, they put the videos of the clients. And they say, yeah, if you want to travel here are the videos of the people, of our clients who went there already. And that's the sweet spot. Because it's just the right place. It's when people scroll and I think I want to go there, I need to be more convinced. Okay, I scroll, I see the text and I see the videos. And that's where you need to, and we go back to what Gita just said at the beginning, is that user-generated content drive purchase decision. And it needs to be at the right spot.
And I love this because you set us up for the next question from Dawood here, which is really about, you can't deposit hashtags or followers. I love that from his question. You can't go to the bank and deposit hashtags or followers. How do we drive this to real ROI, real sales, KPIs? What are some best practices for driving real sales out of user-generated content?
I'd like to chime in on that.
Yes, I can imagine you would.
In a very big way.
Yes.
I think the punchline for this question is spot on. I can't take exposure and put it in the bank. It applies to both creators and it applies to brands. It applies to everyone. No one can take views and hashtags for that. But there's a big but here, that for brands and for the infinite times, every brand has a big marketing strategy. And that strategy is all designed to drive sales, like at the end of the day. And as part of that strategy, there would be awareness drivers, brand drivers, conversion drivers, like a full funnel is being optimized. And we've had our fair share of watching conferences talking about the optimization of the funnel and the top of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel, but it's not independent entities that sort of work as, it's not a disconnected Lego, it's a connected Lego, and it's just you, depending on your objectives, on how old your brand is, how mature your brand is, are you still growing or are you starting to stagnate, are you dipping, to start playing around. Is your brand, are people talking good things about your brand, are people talking bad things about your brand? So depending on where you stand, your levers start playing. I've seen brands, I've lived the days of brands that are investing millions of dollars in awareness to convert that to sales at the retail store, right? And we've also seen brands that are spending millions of dollars to chime those conversions to get that sale done. What e-commerce and digital has done is it's enabled direct connection, but never, I think, will we be in a stage in the marketing world where it's never just the right balance of awareness and conversion. So if I am to put that in context, how can a brand come and use TikTok? Well, come to TikTok, create challenges, create awareness, engage the mass users using the powerful creators that we have, build that brand love, and then in parallel, have an always on game that just drives traffic to it. Because if I am to see an ad of a brand selling me something, and I just engaged with it 2 days ago on something that's really fun and that triggered a smile on my face, right? I'm more likely to click on that ad and convert. So I think if you you can cache hashtags and exposure, but it needs to be a follow through. It can't be just sales or there needs to be love, punchline, pickup line, whatever we call it, as we build that with the consumers between the brands so that there's a relationship that drives the purchase. I'm not gonna buy a brand I don't know. Unless the benefit is like something I'm dying to get to, I'll explore, but I'll do my research to see what people are saying about it before I buy it. So I think that balance is extremely important.
Great, thank you, Rami. Gita or Tracy, would you like to add something on this?
Yes, I would like to add something.
And especially
Gita, we had talked about what Rami said.
Yeah, we also talked about SMEs earlier, and you wanted to mention the difference potentially even between SMEs and larger brands in their use of user content, especially as this is an SME asking.
Yes, I think what is important that everyone has to know that there is not one formula that works for everybody. It's impossible. There are best practices in the market that many brands or corporate they have done and they get result, but they are all trial and test. There are campaigns that, for example, the others they have done, but if you do it for your business, it might not work. So you have to start from the beginning. And I suggest for the small to medium-sized businesses that they have to start, they have to try it, they have to test it, and they learn and they see where they listen properly and they see where they get, the result. So it's all working. Being on social media is a hard job and it's all practices. And practices makes the best. That's as simple as is. and every day we have new platform, new way, and there are a lot of tools free for everyone to use. How to optimize your, for example, pages, how to work on SEO, how to communicate, how to post, how to schedule your post for your pages. There are a lot of free tools. I think companies, SMEs, they have to start checking online and start from zero, and they will learn and they find the best way to communicate with consumers.
Okay, great.
Omar, if I can just add something here to answer to and to follow Gita, it's definitely the role of Omni-Visibility is to help companies to figure out how they can allocate their investments and between BGC, EGC, IGC, and UGC. And that's very important. But to relate to Tracy example with the pharmaceutical company, I think what's very important for this type of companies is to understand how to allocate their visual production. How shall I do it? How can I manage that? And that's where comes Omni-Visibility. And that's why it makes it makes a lot of sense.
Great, thank you, Thierry. I want to you really ask one final question before we wrap up, and I want to try to keep this as brief because I know we're already over time. But one of the risks, obviously, of doing user-generated content is that you get a lot of people saying bad stuff about you, right? And so, if we could just wrap up with some thoughts on how do we mitigate the risks here? How do we try to avoid that, or how do we deal with it when it happens? Just any advice on how you manage this potential for negativity. Maybe, yeah, Ronan, we can start with you.
Yes, when I said that you have to catch the user-generated content and channel it to your brand, you must also, I think, filter it. It's like when we get the raw footage, it's edited by a professional. So we add a guideline that is respected by our videographers, and it makes it work pretty well, because we have sometimes received the raw footage from people on holidays and that were a bit wild. And fortunately, it went through our hands and we have been able to filter it. On the other side, it would have been a very big problem for the brand. So you have to be able to filter it, and getting your hands through, having a process that goes through some filter. I think it's almost mandatory, but maybe someone has a different opinion.
So a filter is one. Sorry, go ahead, Tracy, and then Gita, since you both wanted to speak.
So there is the potential, which is I mean, a risk you're going to have to take if you're going to give so much power to the consumer, right? Of people hijacking your campaign. A very good example is McDonald's. They had put out a campaign where they wanted to basically highlight the farmers that were giving them their products, and they started a hashtag called Meet the Farmers, and then the thread switched it to McStories or something like that, where people just started talking about, they changed the hashtag, people hijacked it, and then started talking about all their bad experiences with McDonald's. So they had to pull down the campaign in 2 hours, and that hashtag kept trending though. So it kind of backfired on them. So there is that risk, of course. But I think the way you balance it is, I mean, I don't know if you can always have a way out of it. I wouldn't know the answer. I thought about this for the McDonald's, like, what is the answer? How would they have known? How would they have foretold? You can't. And this happens with influencers all the time. They think they're talking about a topic, they think they're defending a cause, and then all of a sudden they have a whole bunch of people backfiring on them, misinterpreting what they say, especially if it's a topic that is sensitive. But what you can do in terms of like reposting someone else's content is always ask permission, of course, engage with a customer, talk to them privately, maybe if maybe publicly say, address the situation. There's ways to maybe do it that I would think just exactly how you would if you're a public figure or someone on Instagram, how you would address the situation. A brand kind of has to address the situation similarly.
Thank you, Tracy. Gita?
I think Tracy mentioned all, but what I want to emphasize on is it's the feedback. I think if you can communicate with your customers from the beginning, even if they are unhappy, if you answer them, if they feel that they are heard, they will be very, very easy on the brands. What I can say also is the crisis management is very important for the internationals. Some of them, they think they have it, but they don't have it in their campaigns. They just go ahead without understanding or even communicating with the communication team, making them aware that such a campaign is started. So that's when crisis management comes. That's all I can add. I think is important. Yeah.
Great. I think, unless anyone has something they'd like to add, I'll take this opportunity to wrap up. And just before I do, I'll hand it over to Thierry if he wants to add any final closing comments before we wrap up.
Well, thank you very much, Omar. Again, it has been a great time. We had very interesting people we had the good thoughts and ideas. I'm sure that the audience has been captivated. Just to conclude, I really believe that Omni-Visibility is a key tool for any companies who want to improve their allocation of visual productions. That's the only way, because there are too many visuals coming out actually, and companies need to be helped and driven with that type of tool. Again, I'm going to mention the head of the #1 luxury company in the world in beauty, saying that for the last 5 years, they have increased by 3-fold the number of images they are producing. So at the end, people and brands need some dedicated tool to help them to figure out which type of channel I need to use to better reach my audience. And again, the example of Tracy with the pharmaceutical company is absolutely crucial. When I'm a pharmaceutical company, I cannot follow the path of a beauty company. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And I have to find out my own path and my own allocation of investments in my visual production. And just to conclude, it has been a great pleasure to do this series of seminars with you, Omar, and I'm looking forward to do some more next year.
Thank you very much, Thierry. And thank you to our speakers. Really great insights around authenticity, honesty, clarity, simplicity. These are some of the keywords that we came out with today. I really appreciate all of your insights, and thank you for joining us. Thank you to our audience, and we'll look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.